My name is Brandon Mitchell, and at 32, I never expected to be screaming in pain with hot coffee dripping down my face at my sister Amanda's engagement party. I'd built a successful software company from nothing, was engaged to Sophia, a brilliant pediatric surgeon, and thought I had finally outgrown my family drama. But my mother Caroline had other plans that evening, plans involving my wallet and her golden child. Before I continue this story, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that subscribe button because what happened next changed my family forever in ways nobody could have predicted. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Portland, it was always clear who the favorite child was. From the moment Amanda was born when I was 4, my mother Caroline treated us differently. Amanda got new clothes, I got hand-me-downs. Amanda got lavish birthday parties, I got a cake from the grocery store. Amanda got encouragement for her dreams, I got practical advice about job security. My father Robert was a kind man, but he avoided conflict at all costs. Whenever I'd point out the unfair treatment, he'd give me that sad smile and say, "Your mother just worries about you differently, Brandon." It wasn't until years later that I understood this was his way of acknowledging the truth without standing up to her. School became my escape. I poured myself into academics and computer programming, spending lunch periods in the computer lab rather than dealing with social hierarchies in the cafeteria. By senior year, I'd already created 2 functional apps and secured a partial scholarship to college. My mother's response? "It's good you got some money. We need to save for Amanda's education." College was a struggle. Unlike many of my classmates, I worked 2 jobs while maintaining a full course load. My roommate Troy would sometimes find me asleep at my desk, face pressed against my laptop keyboard. "Dude, you're killing yourself," he'd say, but I knew this was my only path forward. During my junior year, my first serious business venture failed spectacularly. I'd invested my savings in developing a specialized scheduling software for medical offices, only to have a major company release something similar a month before my launch. I called home, not for money, but just for emotional support. "Well, that's why people get regular jobs, Brandon," my mother said. "Not everyone is cut out for business." In the background, I could hear her telling Amanda they'd still help with her spring break trip despite your brother's financial problems. After graduation, I took a coding job at a mid-sized tech company, lived in a tiny studio apartment, and worked on my own projects nights and weekends. For 3 years, I saved aggressively and developed what would become Tech Assist, an AI-driven platform that simplified technical support for businesses. The launch was modest, but the product was solid. In the first year, we signed enough clients to allow me to quit my day job and hire 2 employees. By year 3, we had 30 employees and a real office. By year 5, we were valued at 8 figures and expanding internationally. I never flaunted my success or sought press coverage, preferring to let our product speak for itself. Few people outside the industry knew that TechAssist was becoming a major player. I met Sophia Chin at a hospital fundraiser where my company was donating technical support services. She wasn't impressed by my business card or the company name. In fact, she thought I was part of the catering staff when I brought her a drink. What followed was a refreshing conversation about her work in pediatric surgery and her dreams of improving care in underserved communities. I was instantly captivated by her intelligence, compassion, and the way her eyes lit up when she talked about her patients. Our relationship developed naturally over the next 3 years. Sophia understood my complicated family dynamics because she had her own struggles with parents who pushed her toward medicine but criticized her choice of pediatrics as not prestigious enough. We supported each other's ambitions and healed each other's childhood wounds. When I proposed, we agreed on a meaningful but modest wedding, despite having the means for something extravagant. We preferred to donate a significant portion of what we might have spent to children's hospitals where Sophia worked. We kept these plans private, allowing family to assume we were having a sensible ceremony due to budget constraints. Meanwhile, Amanda had followed a different path. She'd majored in communications, with our parents covering all expenses, including a semester abroad that cost more than my entire education. After college, she bounced between marketing jobs, never staying more than a year, with periods of finding herself in between. During these gaps, our parents subsidized her apartment in fashionable neighborhoods and her active social life. When she met James Reynolds, heir to a commercial real estate development company, my mother was ecstatic. James was handsome, wealthy, and from an established family, everything my mother valued. Their whirlwind romance led to a proposal after just 8 months, with plans for an extravagant wedding befitting their social aspirations. What surprised everyone was James's parents' traditional stance. They expected the bride's family to pay for the wedding. This threw my mother into a panic since the kind of event she envisioned was far beyond my parents' means. I noticed her calls becoming more frequent, her inquiries about my business more specific, and her comments about my simple wedding plans more pointed. "It's so practical of you and Sophia to have a small wedding," she said during one call. "Some people need the big celebration, though." Different personalities, I guess. I should have recognized these as warning shots. Instead, I accepted the invitation to Amanda's engagement party with naive optimism that perhaps, finally, my success might have earned me a place of respect in my mother's eyes. How wrong I was. The engagement party was held at Riverview, one of the most expensive restaurants in the city, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the water and a reputation for exclusivity. As I pulled into the parking lot in my deliberately modest sedan, a choice Sophia and I made to avoid drawing attention to our wealth, I noticed the collection of luxury vehicles. James's crowd had arrived in force. Sophia had texted me earlier with frustrating news. An emergency surgery for one of her young patients meant she would be at least an hour late. "Go ahead without me," she wrote. "I'll be there as soon as I can. Love you." Walking into that restaurant alone felt like stepping onto a stage unprepared. The private room was already half full, with Amanda holding court in a designer dress that probably cost more than my first computer. My father stood awkwardly beside my mother, who was deep in conversation with a woman I assumed was James's mother, both of them laughing a bit too loudly. "Brandon! You made it!" My father spotted me first, relief washing over his face at having a buffer from the social performance. He hurried over, embracing me with genuine warmth. "Where's Sophia?" "Emergency surgery. She'll be here soon," I explained, returning his hug. At 60, my father looked more tired than he should have, the lines around his eyes deeper than at Christmas. "Well, you're here, that's what matters," he said, guiding me toward the center of the room. "Your mother was worried you might be too busy with work." That was code for, "She's been talking about your absence as if it were certain." I put on my most sociable smile and prepared for the performance ahead. Amanda air-kissed my cheek without really looking at me. "Glad you could fit us into your schedule," she said, in that way that made it clear she was repeating something our mother had said earlier. "Wouldn't miss it," I replied, turning to shake hands with James. James Reynolds was tall, conventionally handsome, and carried himself with the ease of someone who had never worried about money. But there was something genuine in his handshake and the way he made eye contact. "Brandon, good to finally meet you. Amanda talks about her big brother all the time." I wondered what exactly she had said, given our distant relationship, but nodded politely. "Congratulations. You've chosen a beautiful venue for the celebration." "My parents' choice, actually," he admitted quietly. "They're big on appearances." Before I could respond, my mother swooped in, designer dress swishing, jewelry catching the light. "Brandon, you came alone? Where's Sarah?" "Sophia, Mom. Her name is Sophia, and she had an emergency surgery. She'll join us soon." My mother waved this away as if a child's life-saving operation was a flimsy excuse. "Well, come meet the Reynolds," They're very accomplished people, you know. James's father owns half the commercial properties downtown. The implication was clear. These are people who matter, unlike you. I followed her to where an older couple stood surveying the room like benevolent royalty. Mr. Reynolds had James's height and confidence, while Mrs. Reynolds assessed me with a practiced social smile that never reached her eyes. "This is our son, Brandon." My mother introduced me with a telling lack of elaboration on my achievements. "He works with computers. Brandon, this is Margaret and William Reynolds." "A pleasure," Margaret said, her handshake delicate. "What sort of computer work do you do, Brandon?" Before I could answer, my mother jumped in. "Oh, he has a little tech support company. Very practical. Amanda was just telling us about your property in the Bahamas. It sounds divine." And so it went for the next 30 minutes. Every time I spoke with a new guest, my mother would materialize to redirect the conversation away from any mention of my business or accomplishments. When a distant cousin asked about my wedding plans, my mother interjected that it would be a simple affair, very appropriate for them. With a smile that managed to be both dismissive and condescending. The toast before dinner was especially uncomfortable. My mother clinked her glass, commanding attention from the center of the room. "We are so blessed to celebrate Amanda and James's engagement," she began, her voice carrying that performative emotion I had known since childhood. "Amanda has always been our shining star, bringing joy and beauty to everything she touches." She launched into a story about Amanda's childhood dance recital. A tale I'd heard mythologized countless times, where apparently my sister's natural talent had moved the audience to tears. "And now she's found her perfect match in James," my mother continued. "Which brings me to what I wanted to discuss with you. Here it comes, I thought. Amanda and James have been planning their wedding, and it's going to be absolutely spectacular. The Reynolds know everyone who matters in this city, so naturally, it needs to be an event people will remember." I nodded, waiting for her to get to the point. "The thing is," she continued, lowering her voice conspiratorially, "there's been a slight issue with the budget. The venue Amanda has her heart set on requires a $50,000 deposit, and with the catering, flowers, and everything else, we're finding ourselves a bit extended." "That sounds like an expensive wedding," I commented neutrally. My mother's smile tightened. "Well, when you marry into a family like the Reynolds, certain standards must be maintained. Anyway, your father and I have put in $30,000 already. But we're still short about $50,000 for everything Amanda wants." She paused, looking at me expectantly. When I didn't immediately offer to write a check, she continued more directly. "Brandon, we were hoping you could contribute the remaining $50,000. You've done so well with your little company, and you don't have any children to support. This would mean the world to your sister." I took a deep breath. "Mom, that's a lot of money. Sophia and I have our own wedding to plan, plus other financial commitments." My mother's expression hardened slightly. "Your wedding? From what I understand, you're having a very modest ceremony. Amanda said Sophia doesn't even have a proper engagement ring." This was untrue. Sophia had a beautiful, ethically sourced diamond that she had specifically chosen for its understated elegance. "Besides," my mother continued, "you could always postpone your wedding for a year. Amanda's is coming up in just 6 months, and this is her one chance to make the right impression on the Reynolds family. Surely you can see how important this is?" I felt my jaw tighten. "I'm not postponing my wedding to Sophia. We've been planning this for a year." "Well then, can't you just take out a loan against your business or something? $50,000 shouldn't be much for someone so successful." The slight emphasis on successful carried her perpetual doubt about my achievements. "Mom, I'm sorry, but I can't give you $50,000 for Amanda's wedding. I'd be happy to contribute $5,000, but that's my limit." This was far less than I could afford, but I needed to establish a boundary. My mother's face flushed. $5,000? That won't even cover the floral arrangements. Brandon, this is your sister we're talking about. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Mom? I interrupted, keeping my voice low but firm. I paid my own way through college. I built my business without any help from family. I've never asked you for money. We gave you a stable home, a good education. You gave Amanda those things. I worked for everything I have. Her eyes narrowed. So that's it? You're going to be selfish and ruin your sister's special day because of some childhood jealousy? I thought you'd grown up, Brandon. This isn't about jealousy. It's about reasonable expectations. A $50,000 contribution to a wedding is not reasonable. Well, it's too late anyway, she said, her voice turning cold. I've already told the vendors you'd cover it. The deposits are due next week. I stared at her in disbelief. You promised money in my name without even asking me? I knew you'd agree once you understood how important this is to the family. To Amanda's future. That was incredibly presumptuous, Mom. You had no right to do that. Her expression shifted to the wounded martyrdom I knew all too well. After all the sacrifices I've made for this family, for you, this is how you repay me? By embarrassing us in front of the Reynolds? I'm not giving you $50,000, I stated firmly. And I'm not responsible for promises you made without my consent. She glared at me for a long moment, then turned sharply. We should get back to the table. We'll discuss this later when you're being more reasonable. As we returned to the dining room, I noticed my father watching us with concern. He could always read the tension between my mother and me, even when we were pretending everything was fine. I gave him a slight head shake as I took my seat, letting him know this wasn't something he needed to intervene in. But the confrontation was far from over. My mother had merely retreated to regroup. And I knew from experience that the next round would be much more public. The main course had just been served when my mother cleared her throat loudly, tapping her water glass with a fork. The private dining room quieted as all eyes turned toward her. I'd like to make another toast, she announced, her voice carrying that false sweetness I'd grown to dread. To family support during important life transitions. My stomach tightened. This was her next move, public pressure. As we celebrate Amanda and James, I'm reminded of how crucial family is during these milestone moments. She smiled around the table, lingering on the Reynolds. When I married Robert, my parents gave us the most beautiful wedding. They understood the importance of starting a marriage with the proper celebration. Several guests nodded appreciatively, unaware of the ambush unfolding. Amanda and James deserve nothing less. My mother continued. A wedding that honors their bright future together. She turned directly to me now, her smile fixed but her eyes hard. Brandon, as Amanda's only brother, I know you want to continue this family tradition of support. Perhaps you'd like to say a few words about your contribution to their special day? The room fell uncomfortably silent. All eyes shifted to me, including Amanda's, who wore an expectant smile that mirrored my mother's. Even James looked confused, clearly unaware of the financial manipulation happening at his engagement party. I set down my fork carefully. I think wedding discussions are probably better handled privately. Not during the celebration. Don't be modest, my mother insisted. Amanda already told everyone how excited you are to help with their wedding costs. Isn't that right, Amanda? My sister nodded enthusiastically. Brandon promised to handle the venue deposit and the catering. It's his wedding gift to us. She beamed at James. My brother has always been so generous. I felt heat rising in my face. They had not only discussed this behind my back but had already told people I had agreed to it. I looked at my father, who was staring intently at his plate, unwilling to meet my eyes. I never promised that, I said firmly, addressing the table. This is the first I'm hearing about covering those specific costs. An uncomfortable murmur spread through the guests. James's father frowned slightly, while his mother raised her eyebrows. Amanda's smile faltered. But Mom said, I said I'd be happy to offer a gift, but we never discussed amounts or specifics. I clarified, trying to keep my voice level. My mother jumped in quickly. Brandon is just being humble. Of course he's covering the $50,000. After all, what's money between siblings? Especially when one has done so well and the other is just starting out. James shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Actually, I hadn't heard about this arrangement either. My parents offered to cover. Nonsense. My mother interrupted. The bride's family traditionally pays for the wedding. We wouldn't dream of burdening your family, James. It's not a burden, James's father began, but Amanda cut him off. Brandon, promise. She insisted, her voice taking on the whining quality I remembered from childhood demands. He knows how important this is to me. I took a deep breath. Amanda. I never promised $50,000. Mom brought this up to me for the first time 10 minutes ago. So you're backing out? Amanda's voice rose. After everything's been arranged? I can't back out of something I never agreed to, I said, struggling to remain calm. My mother's expression darkened. Brandon, I raised you better than this. Your sister needs your help. And you have the means. What would it cost you to make her happy on the most important day of her life? It would cost $50,000. I replied, unable to keep a hint of sarcasm from my voice. Money that Sophia and I have already allocated to other priorities, including our own wedding. Your wedding? Amanda scoffed. To the doctor with the boring dress sense? Postpone it. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for me to marry into the Reynolds family. James looked startled at being referred to as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, rather than a beloved fiancée. I'm not postponing my wedding, I stated firmly. And I'm not giving you $50,000. My father finally spoke up, his voice tentative. Caroline, perhaps we should discuss this at home. This is supposed to be a celebration. My mother rounded on him. Stay out of this, Robert. You've never understood what it takes to maintain social standing. She turned back to me. Brandon. I've already given the vendors your contact information. The deposits are due next week. Then you'll need to call them back and give them different information. I replied. I never authorized that. The tension in the room was palpable now. Several guests were exchanging uncomfortable glances, while others stared fixedly at their plates. James looked increasingly mortified. Amanda's eyes filled with tears, her standard tactic when not getting her way. You're ruining everything. You've always been jealous of me. This isn't about jealousy, I said wearily. It's about reasonable expectations and honest communication. After everything I've sacrificed for you, my mother interjected, her voice rising dramatically. All the nights I stayed up when you were sick, all the school events I attended, all the opportunities one gave you. I couldn't help but laugh incredulously. What opportunities, Mom? You paid for Amanda's education while I worked through college. You funded her apartment while I built my business from nothing. You've consistently favored her my entire life. That's not true, my mother gasped, though everyone at the table who knew our family was aware of the dynamic. It is true, I insisted. And I've made peace with it. I've built my own life, my own success. I'm happy to contribute a reasonable amount to Amanda's wedding, but $50,000 is not reasonable. Not reasonable? My mother's voice reached a dangerous pitch. What's not reasonable is your selfishness. Your sister deserves a beautiful wedding. Then perhaps you should adjust the budget to what you can actually afford, I suggested. Or perhaps, Amanda cut in. You should remember who your family is before you throw away $50,000 on some charity wedding with your doctor girlfriend. I froze. What did you just say? Amanda smirked, realizing she had hit a nerve. Mom told me all about your plans to donate money to hospitals instead of having a proper wedding. As if anyone believes that's what you really want. I turned to my mother. You went through my personal correspondence? She had the grace to look momentarily flustered. I was just trying to understand your wedding plans when you've been so secretive. I happened to see an email on your laptop at Christmas about donations in lieu of wedding expenses. You searched through my laptop? The violation felt even worse than the demand for money. That's beside the point. My mother dismissed. The point is you clearly have money to throw around. Just not for your sister. The entire table had fallen silent, witnessing our family dysfunction laid bare. James looked horrified, while his parents wore matching expressions of disdain. I think we've discussed this enough for tonight, I said, standing up. I'll be making a reasonable contribution to Amanda's wedding, but it won't be $50,000. And I won't be covering expenses you've already promised in my name without my consent. My mother's face contorted with fury. Sit down. We haven't finished this discussion. I believe we have, I replied, pushing in my chair. That's when everything exploded. You ungrateful, selfish boy. My mother's voice escalated to a shriek that echoed off the restaurant's elegant walls. Her face flushed deep red as she stood up so quickly her chair toppled backward with a crash. The other guests froze, forks suspended midway to mouths, all pretense of not listening abandoned. James's mother pressed a hand to her chest in shock while his father's expression darkened with disapproval. After everything I've done for you, my mother continued, trembling with rage. After all the sacrifices I've made. Mom, I said quietly, conscious of our audience. Let's discuss this another time. No! You don't get to walk away from your responsibilities to this family. She jabbed a finger in my direction. You think you're so important with your little computer business, too good for us now? That's not what I said. I simply can't give you $50,000. Can't? Or won't? She laughed bitterly. We all know you have the money. You're just choosing your precious Sophia and her charity cases over your own sister. Amanda, sensing her advantage, joined in with practiced tears streaming down her face. I just wanted one perfect day, Brandon. Is that too much to ask from my only brother? James placed a hand on Amanda's shoulder, looking increasingly uncomfortable. Amanda. Maybe we should stay out of this. She snapped at him, then immediately softened her expression. I'm sorry, honey. I'm just so upset. My father finally stood up, his face pale but determined. Caroline, that's enough. You can't force Brandon to pay for the wedding. We need to figure out a different solution. My mother whirled on him. Of course you take his side. You've never understood what it takes to maintain our position. The Reynolds will think we're pathetic if we can't give Amanda the wedding she deserves. Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat. Actually, we had already offered to. We don't need your charity. My mother cut him off, then immediately backtracked. I mean, it's very generous, but traditionally the bride's family. And Brandon has more than enough. I shook my head, exhausted by the familiar pattern. Mom, I've made my decision. I'll send you a check for $5,000 tomorrow as my gift to Amanda and James. That's final. A strange calm seemed to settle over my mother. Her eyes narrowed as she looked at me with a coldness I'd never seen before, even during our worst arguments. 5,000, she repeated softly. That's what your sister's happiness is worth to you. My offer is generous and appropriate, I maintained. I'm sorry if you expected more. What happened next occurred so quickly that I barely had time to react. My mother's hand shot out, grabbing her coffee cup from the table. With a fluid motion born of pure rage, she flung the contents directly at my face. The hot liquid hit me with shocking force, splashing across my eyes, nose, and mouth. For a split second, there was just wetness. And then the pain registered, a searing, immediate burn that made me cry out involuntarily. Coffee dripped down my face onto my shirt collar as I stumbled backward. Jesus Christ! Someone gasped. Oh my God! Came another voice. The restaurant fell into stunned silence. Through my coffee-blurred vision, I could see James staring in horror, his parents frozen in shock. My father had half risen from his chair, his mouth open but no sound coming out. "Brandon!" He finally moved toward me, grabbing a napkin. The pain was intense but not unbearable. The coffee had been hot but not scalding. Served with dessert, it had cooled somewhat. Still, my skin burned and my eyes stung fiercely. "Are you okay?" my father asked, handing me the cloth napkin. "I'll be fine," I managed, wiping my face. My white dress shirt was stained brown, my tie likely ruined. As my vision cleared, I looked around the room. The other guests sat in stunned silence. The waiter who had been serving dessert stood motionless by the door, unsure whether to intervene or pretend nothing had happened. Most shocking was Amanda's reaction. As I wiped coffee from my eyes, I caught her expression, not concern for my well-being or embarrassment at our mother's behavior, but a small, satisfied smirk. In that moment, I saw clearly how similar she and my mother truly were. My mother stood her ground, coffee cup still clutched in her hand, chin lifted defiantly. "Now you know how it feels to be burned by family," she declared. As if she'd made some profound point rather than assaulted her son in public. My father's face had transformed. The perpetual conflict avoidance that defined him had finally cracked, revealing something I'd rarely seen, genuine anger. "Caroline, that's enough," he said, his voice firm and unfamiliar. "You've gone too far." "Too far?" she scoffed. "After he's refused to help his own sister? After all we've done for him?" I dabbed at my eyes, which were still stinging. "What exactly have you done for me, Mom? Name one thing." "I gave birth to you," she spat. "I raised you. Doing the basic legal requirements of parenthood isn't something to brag about," I interrupted. A lifetime of suppressed frustration finally breaking through. "You've favored Amanda my entire life. You've criticized my choices, belittled my achievements. And now you've physically assaulted me because I won't give you $50,000. This is not normal behavior. How dare you speak to me that way?" she gasped. "Brandon is right, Caroline," my father said quietly. "This isn't normal. This isn't right." The restaurant doors swung open, and a familiar figure rushed in, still wearing scrubs under her coat. Sophia took in the scene, me with coffee-stained clothes, the stunned guests, my mother's defensive posture, and immediately came to my side. "Brandon! What happened? Are you hurt?" Her medical training kicked in as she examined my face, gently touching the reddened skin. "I'm okay," I assured her. "Just a little burned." His mother threw hot coffee at him. James's father informed her, his tone conveying his disbelief at the situation. Sophia's expression hardened as she turned to face my mother. "You did what?" "Stay out of this," my mother snapped. "This is family business." "I am his family," Sophia replied evenly. "And you just assaulted the man I love," my mother scoffed. "He deserved it. He's refusing to help his sister have the wedding she deserves, even though he has plenty of money from that company of his." Sophia looked at me questioningly, and I nodded, giving her permission for what I knew was coming next. "Mrs. Mitchell," Sophia said calmly, "I don't think you understand who your son is or what he does." Sophia stood beside me, her presence as steadying as always. Despite having come directly from surgery, she looked completely composed, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun, her eyes clear and focused. Only those who knew her well would notice the slight tightening of her jaw that signaled her anger. "What's that supposed to mean?" my mother demanded, still clutching the empty coffee cup like a weapon. "It means," Sophia continued calmly, "that you've badly misjudged both your son's character and his success." The room remained utterly silent. All pretense of private family matters abandoned. Even the waitstaff had stopped pretending not to listen. Brandon hasn't told you much about his company because you've never shown genuine interest, Sophia explained. But TechAssist isn't a little computer business. It's a multi-million-dollar enterprise that revolutionized AI-driven technical support systems. Last year, it was valued at over $70 million. My mother's mouth opened and closed soundlessly. Amanda's smirk vanished. But that's not all. Sophia continued. Brandon, would you like me to continue, or would you prefer to keep this private? I thought for a moment, then decided that the truth needed to be spoken. Go ahead. Sophia turned to James, who was watching the scene unfold with undisguised astonishment. James, what's the name of your family's development company? Reynolds Commercial Properties, he answered automatically. And who's your biggest tech infrastructure investor? She asked. James's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Mitchell Innovations, he said quietly. A silent partner who came in during our expansion 3 years ago. My mother's face paled dramatically as she made the connection. That's you? She asked, looking at me with new eyes. I nodded. Dad knew. I told him when I made the investment, but he respected my wish to keep it quiet. My father offered a small, sad smile. I was proud of you, son. I've always been proud of you. But why didn't you tell us? Amanda stammered, her carefully constructed tears forgotten. Because money was never the point for me. I explained. I built my company to solve problems and create something meaningful, not to impress people or by status. Sophia gently took over again. That modest wedding you've been mocking? We're donating over $200,000 to build new pediatric care facilities in underserved communities. Brandon has quietly funded medical care for hundreds of children whose families couldn't afford treatment. James was staring at me with newfound respect. You're the angel investor my father wouldn't name. The one who insisted the funding come with the condition that we incorporate green building practices and provide affordable commercial space for local businesses. I shrugged, uncomfortable with the attention. Sustainable development benefits everyone. My mother had gone completely still, the coffee cup now hanging limply from her fingers. 200,000. For hospitals? She whispered. Yes, Sophia confirmed. Because that's who Brandon is. He cares more about making a difference than making an impression. Amanda looked stricken. But you could have told us. You let us think. I let you think what you wanted to think. I interjected. Neither of you ever asked about my business or showed any real interest in my life. You assumed I was doing okay but not great, and that was fine with me. I don't need or want recognition for what I've built. You've deliberately hidden your success to make us look foolish. My mother accused, finding her voice again, though it lacked her earlier conviction. No, Mom. I've simply lived my life according to my own values, not yours. Money and status have never motivated me the way they do you. James's father stood up, straightening his jacket. Brandon, I had no idea we were in the presence of Mitchell himself. Your investment transformed our company's technological capabilities. William speaks highly of your business acumen. William was James's uncle and the company's CTO. The only person who knew my identity as their investor. I had worked closely with him on implementing their new systems. Thank you, sir. William is brilliant at implementation. The dynamics in the room had shifted dramatically. James's parents were now looking at me with newfound respect, while other guests whispered among themselves, reassessing everything they'd witnessed. Amanda appeared shell-shocked, while my mother stood frozen, still processing the revelation. Suddenly, my mother swayed slightly, her face draining of all color. Without warning, her eyes rolled back and she collapsed to the floor in a dead faint. Mom! Amanda shrieked, finally breaking from her stupor. Sophia was at my mother's side in an instant, her doctor's instincts taking over. Give her space, she commanded, checking my mother's pulse and breathing. She's fainted. probably a combination of shock and embarrassment. My father knelt beside them, his face creased with concern despite everything that had happened. Caroline? Can you hear me? Sophia looked up at the hovering waiter. Could we get some water, please? And perhaps some ice for Mr. Mitchell's face? The restaurant staff, grateful for clear direction, hurried to comply. James's mother instructed another waiter to escort the other guests to the restaurant's main area, to give the family some privacy. A graceful exit for everyone involved. As the room cleared, leaving just our immediate families, my mother's eyes fluttered open. She looked disoriented for a moment, then focused on my face leaning over her. Recognition dawned, followed by unmistakable shame. Brandon? She whispered. I'm here, Mom, I replied, surprised by the genuine concern I felt despite everything. She struggled to sit up, Sophia and my father supporting her. I don't know what came over me. The coffee. I never. You've had a shock, Sophia said professionally, though I could hear the coolness beneath her clinical tone. Just take slow, deep breaths. My mother looked around at the nearly empty room, at James and his parents standing awkwardly nearby, at Amanda hovering uncertainly behind them. The full magnitude of what had happened, both her actions and the revelations that followed, seemed to hit her all at once. Oh God, she murmured. What have I done? No one answered. The question hung in the air, rhetorical and damning. After ensuring my mother was physically stable, Sophia returned to my side, examining the red patches on my face. You'll be fine, she said quietly. But we should get some cold compresses on this soon. James approached us hesitantly. Brandon, I had no idea about any of this. The investment, your company, or the wedding fund situation. He glanced back at Amanda, who was now sitting silently at the table, staring at nothing. I never asked Amanda's parents for money. My parents offered to cover most expenses. I don't know why this became an issue. It became an issue, my father said tiredly, joining our conversation. Because Caroline and Amanda wanted a wedding that would impress the social circles they aspire to. They wanted something grander than even your parents had offered. James frowned. That's not what marriage is about. No, I agreed. It's not. My mother had recovered enough to stand, though she kept one hand on a chair for support. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the evening's events. Brandon, she began, her voice uncharacteristically uncertain. I don't know what to say. I think we've all said enough for tonight, I replied. Sophia and I are going to leave now. I need to tend to my face, and Sophia's had a long day saving a child's life. My mother flinched at the implied comparison between our priorities. Will you call me tomorrow? I considered this for a moment. Not tomorrow. I need some time. I understand, she said, though I doubted she truly did. As Sophia and I prepared to leave, James stopped us. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I'm sorry about all this. And I'm grateful for your investment in my family's company. It's made a real difference. I nodded. Take care of yourself, James. And think carefully about the family you're marrying into. He glanced back at Amanda, who was now sobbing quietly while my father awkwardly patted her shoulder. I will, he promised. Outside in the cool night air, Sophia finally allowed her professional composure to drop. Are you really okay? She asked, gently touching my reddened cheek. I'm fine, I assured her, more surprised than hurt. Your mother threw coffee at you, she said, her voice tight with anger. That crosses a line. It does, I agreed. And I think something fundamental changed tonight. For all of us. As we drove home, I felt strangely liberated. The careful facade I'd maintained with my family for years had finally cracked open, revealing the truth, not just about my financial success, but about the dysfunctional patterns that had defined our relationships for decades. What are you thinking? Sophia asked as we pulled into our driveway. I considered the question carefully. I'm thinking it's time to stop enabling toxic behavior, even from family. Especially from family. She squeezed my hand. I'm with you, whatever you decide. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that she meant it. That was the difference between the family we're born into and the family we choose. One demands loyalty regardless of behavior. The other earns it through love and respect. That night, as I applied cold compresses to my face, I made a decision. The cycle of manipulation and emotional blackmail would end with me. It was time to establish healthier boundaries, not out of spite or revenge, but out of self-respect and the determination to build something better. The physical effects of the coffee incident faded within days. The emotional aftermath, however, took much longer to process. For the first week, my phone buzzed constantly with calls and messages from my mother and Amanda, alternating between apologies, justifications, and renewed attempts at manipulation. Your mother is devastated. One text from Amanda read, "The least you could do is answer her calls." I showed it to Sophia, who raised an eyebrow. Notice how it's about your mother's feelings, not about what she did to you. She was right, of course. Even their apologies centered themselves as the victims of stress, of societal expectations, of misunderstandings. Never of their own choices and actions. After consulting with Sophia, I sent a brief email to both of them. I need space to process what happened. I'll contact you when I'm ready to talk. In the meantime, I've sent a check for $5,000 as my wedding gift to Amanda and James. This is a firm boundary. Please respect it. The response was predictable. More tears, more accusations of abandonment. More attempts to make me feel guilty for establishing boundaries. I held firm, focusing instead on healing and on the positive aspects of my life, my relationship with Sophia, our wedding plans, and the fulfilling work we both did. 2 weeks after the engagement party, my father called. Unlike my mother and sister, he had respected my request for space, sending only a single text expressing his regret for not intervening sooner. "Brandon," he said when I answered, his voice sounding different somehow, stronger, more resolved. "I wanted you to know that I've moved out of the house. I'm staying at Uncle George's lake cabin for now." I sat down, surprised by this development. "You left Mom?" "I've separated from your mother," he clarified. "Whether it's temporary or permanent depends on a lot of things, including her willingness to get help. This has been coming for years, son. What happened at the restaurant was just the final push I needed." A complex mix of emotions washed through me, sadness for the family fracture, but also a strange pride in my father for finally standing up for himself. "How are you doing with all this?" I asked. He was quiet for a moment. "Better than I expected, actually. It's peaceful here. I can hear myself think for the first time in decades." He paused. "I should have been a better advocate for you growing up. I'm sorry I didn't protect you from the favoritism and the manipulation." "You were caught in it too, Dad," I pointed out. "Yes, but I was the adult. It was my job to ensure both my children were treated fairly." His voice cracked slightly. "I failed you, Brandon. And I'd like the chance to do better, if you're willing." That conversation marked the beginning of a new relationship with my father. We started meeting weekly for lunch, getting to know each other as adults, free from my mother's dominating presence. I learned about his passion for woodworking, a hobby he'd abandoned years ago because my mother considered it messy and common. He showed genuine interest in my business, asking thoughtful questions and offering surprisingly insightful suggestions. "You know," he told me during one of our lunches, "I always understood what you were building better than I let on. But Caroline was so threatened by your success that it was easier to pretend ignorance." "Threatened? Why would she be threatened by my success?" He sighed. "Because it didn't fit the narrative she'd created, that Amanda was the special one, the one destined for greatness through marrying into status. You were supposed to be the ordinary child who needed her guidance and approval." Your independent success undermined her control. His insight helped me understand decades of family dynamics, though it didn't excuse the behavior. Meanwhile, the situation with Amanda and James took an unexpected turn. 3 weeks after the engagement party, James called me directly. "I need your advice," he said, sounding troubled. "Amanda and your mother are still pushing for this extravagant wedding, even though my parents and I have expressed concerns about the cost and, well, other things." "What other things?" I asked, though I suspected I knew. "The way they treat people," he admitted. "After seeing what happened at the engagement party, I've been paying closer attention. The way Amanda speaks to waitstaff, the comments your mother makes about my family behind their backs. It's making me question whether this is the right path forward." I chose my words carefully. "James, I can't tell you what to do about your engagement. But I would suggest that how someone treats others when they're stressed or disappointed is a good indicator of their character." 2 days later, Amanda called me in tears. James had postponed the wedding indefinitely, citing concerns about compatibility and family dynamics. She blamed me, of course, accusing me of poisoning James against her. "This is all your fault," she sobbed. "You and your perfect doctor fiancé and your millions of dollars. You've ruined everything." "Amanda," I said firmly, "James made his own decision based on what he observed. If you want to salvage your relationship, I suggest you look honestly at your behavior and how it might have contributed to his concerns." She hung up on me. 6 months later, Sophia and I had our wedding, a meaningful ceremony attended by close friends, my father, and selected family members. True to our plan, we announced substantial donations to 3 children's hospitals in lieu of an extravagant reception. My mother was not invited. After several failed attempts at therapy, which she quit when the therapist suggested she might have narcissistic tendencies, she had shown no real understanding of why her behavior was problematic. Amanda, who had broken things off completely with James, joined her in a campaign of victimhood among their social circle. As Sophia and I exchanged vows, I felt a profound sense of peace. We were building something authentic and meaningful together, based on mutual respect and shared values. The path hadn't been easy, but the painful confrontation at Amanda's engagement party had catalyzed necessary changes in all our lives. My father found a new sense of independence and joy in his simplified life. He eventually filed for divorce and started dating a kind widow from his community center, a relationship characterized by mutual support rather than control and criticism. As for me, I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do, both for yourself and others, is to establish firm boundaries. Money and success mean nothing if they come at the cost of your self-respect and emotional well-being. Family should be a source of support and love, not manipulation and pain. 2 years after that fateful night, I received a letter from my mother. Unlike her previous communications, this one contained no justifications or veiled accusations, just a simple acknowledgement. "I've been wrong for a very long time. The way I treated you was inexcusable. I don't expect forgiveness, but I wanted you to know that I'm finally getting the help I should have sought years ago. Congratulations on your recent industry award and on the birth of your daughter. She is lucky to have you as a father. It wasn't a magical reconciliation, but it was a start, a small step toward healthier relationships based on respect rather than control. Whether our family could be fully mended remained to be seen. But I was no longer defined by that broken dynamic. The coffee stains on my shirt that night had long since washed away. The lessons, however, remained: stand firm in your truth. Choose your family wisely. And never let anyone, no matter their relation to you, diminish your worth or make you compromise your integrity. Have you ever had to stand up to family pressure or establish difficult boundaries with loved ones? Let me know in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the ones that lead to the most growth. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life experiences. Remember, Blood makes you related, but loyalty and respect make you family. Thank you for listening, and I wish you the courage to honor your own worth in all your relationships.